All right, next up is Andreas Hasenack, and he's speaking to us about Debian and Ubuntu packages in Launchpad Git. Andreas, we look forward to listening to you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Sorry. It's my first DebConf. Nice to be here. Nice to see you all. I work for Canonical. I work in the Ubuntu server team. And I'm going to show you here how we use Git to store our packages and how it benefits us, and how I think it will also benefit upstreams, Debian included, of course. Git is awesome. There are many ways to do things with Git. There are many tools around it. There are many ways to store branches in Git, or to store packaging branches in Git, as we saw in Ian's presentation a few days ago. I'm not pushing here for a particular way of doing things. That's not my goal here. I'm not going to push for a tool, nothing like that, other than just Git. And just going to show you how it helps us and how I think it helps can help Debian as well. So this all started with, you could say, this email from Robbie Bazak. He's still in Canonical with us in the server team. We have in Ubuntu, of course, we depend on Debian. We are downstream from Debian. Some packages, many in fact, we apply changes. There can be anything like replacing a logo, replacing a default setting, something that we think should be done differently, and we do it. But then Debian releases a new version of the package, and we need to rebase our changes on top of this new version. And this is the keyword, rebase. That spells like Git. So Robbie had this problem back then, the MySQL package he was maintaining, and it had a very big delta with Debian. Once he got that delta down to a reasonable level, he still had about 120 commits representing this delta. That is way too much. So by applying the workflow that he described in this announcement, in this email, he got that down to about 8 logical changes, and they were very easy to submit back to Debian. And nowadays, I think the package is basically a sync. So this is the problem that we were trying to solve, how to manage the delta with Debian. And it comes with some nice side effects. It helps elsewhere as well. This is what we call the importer. It was born from following that idea. It basically imports Debian and Ubuntu packages into Git. Launchpad already does it. Launchpad already imports all the source packages from Debian and all the source packages of Ubuntu, of course. It already imports them into its archive. So that job is done. We just need to import those packages into Git now. If you go to a certain package in Launchpad, you can use /Debian URL for distribution. And here's an example, Samba. We already have several versions imported. You can download them from here if you want to. And we have the full publishing history. This is many pages long. You can click next there, and this is many pages long. We have all the uploads of Debian in Launchpad. We also have the same for Ubuntu. And on that page, it's maximized here. If you click on code, you will actually get to the actual Git branches. Each package has a repository. It's a repository of its own, and we have several branches in there. It's a lot of branches, so we are going through some of them. But the key points here are, it's a standard URL. You just replace samba in this example with a package. You can git clone that. You will get these branches. You will get a repository. We have Ubuntu Devel, Debian Buster, other Debian releases. We have branches for stable releases. We have branches with patches applied. I'm going to talk about this. So Ubuntu Devel always points to tip. That's the latest version. That's the version development in Ubuntu. Debian, we have a branch for each release, seed, buster, experimental, and so on. For Ubuntu, we have branches for the stable releases. So, for example, Ubuntu/Bionic-security. That represents what is in the security pocket of Bionic. And we also have the applied versions of these guys, which have the quilt patches applied. All the other branches, they are in the unapplied state. The patches are not applied. The applied branch, the idea here is for someone who doesn't know packaging. He just knows the code. He wants to see what's running on his system. He wants to get the code that's equivalent to that. He or she can get the applied branch. The patches are applied, apply his own patch on top of it, and submit for review. He doesn't need to know about quilt and stuff and packaging. Here's a simple example. I'm cloning that samba example from before. You can see I'm just using normal Git tools here. Git clone samba, enter the directory. The default branch you get is Ubuntu Devel, but I can also check out Debian sit, and I will get the Debian code here. Now, this is done by the importer. The importer basically imports a source package into Git, and that's one commit. So this means every single upload becomes one commit. Not very useful if you want to see what was done in the development of that package, but for our purposes, this is enough, and I will show this later. We also have this tool we call git-ubuntu, which makes certain steps a bit easier if you want to use that. It also works in Debian. It's a snap, so you have to install snapd and then install the tool. And then you can use just a package name. You don't need to know about URLs or remotes or anything like that. Just do a git-ubuntu clone, package name. It will do the same thing, clone it. It will also set up push branches, push remotes for you. And you can easily add remotes for other people. So if you want to review somebody's branch, you can easily add a remote and then fetch that. But it's not mandatory, it's just a helper. And it could also be done, with many other tools, with shell script and so on. This is important. The packages are uploaded first to the archive, and then they are imported into Git. It's not the other way around. We would like it to be the other way around, or at least to have the possibility in the future. But right now, it's like this. So the Debian packages in this repository, you will get one commit per upload. So one commit per Debian package version. In the case of Ubuntu, if you used Git to develop the package in Ubuntu, you can get a rich history. That is done by pushing what we call an upload tag. So if prior to your upload you push the special upload tag, and then you upload, the moment the importer sees that package and decides to import it, it will check if there is a matching upload tag. If there is, this is the Git tree it will use, the one pointed to by the upload tag. Otherwise, it will just be a normal import, one commit per new package. Here is a quick example how you would prepare an update for a stable release. You start with cloning the package. You can use git-ubuntu or just clone with the URL, as we saw before. You create a branch for your fix, pointing it at Bionic Devel, which is the tip of Bionic. Do your stuff, fix it, add patches, test, etc. Push. If you use git-ubuntu, the remote will be set for you. Otherwise, just add a remote manually using Git. Push it, create a merge proposal, either via the tool or by just browsing to Launchpad. There's a button, propose this branch. So this is the case for stable releases, for applying fixes on top of stable releases. These fixes, they're usually very small, they are very self-contained, they are very specific. It's not like a package update, it's not a new version. It's a small fix, 1 or 2 patches. Now, in the beginning I said that what prompted this work was the merges from Debian, and that's a bit more complicated. But it helps us really a lot here. So we have here an example. We have a Debian package, just called it full. Debian has a few releases, 1.21, 1.22, and then a new upstream version. And Ubuntu decided to grab this package at this version here, 1.2-1. That's the base version. And applied some changes on top. For reasons, could be anything. We decided to apply some changes on top. Then on top of that package, we added more changes, so that became 1 Ubuntu 2. So what's the current state of this is that the Ubuntu Delta is represented by the difference between this package, the one that is in Ubuntu now, and the original Debian base package. We try to keep this delta very concise, so we don't include changelog changes in there. We don't include the Debian control maintainer update. Sometimes we squash commits. For example, in 1 Ubuntu 1, we could be adding a patch, and then 1 Ubuntu 2, we decide, nah, that patch broke it, we remove it. So the delta is not adding a patch and removing a patch. The delta is, in that case, there is no delta. That patch doesn't exist, so that's how we represent it here. The idea, again, being to make this delta very small and easy to understand. And we found out that git range diff, well, I'll get to that later. So Debian makes a new release, 1.3, a new upstream. So our job is to apply this delta we have on top of the new Debian package. And that's a git rebase. That's what it does. And that's exactly what we do. We just do a git rebase on top of this guy here. Then we adjust the delta. Sometimes we have to drop patches. Sometimes we have to refresh. Sorry, sometimes you have to refresh them, and that becomes the nil delta. So now the nil delta is represented here. And Git range diff, it's a new feature in one of the more recent releases of Git. It's awesome to show us the differences between the old delta and the new delta. We can check if we did the right thing. We can check if we migrated all the changes we had correctly to the new version. We can match if what we are saying, the changelog that we did change, if we really did it. We have found cases here where somebody forgot to mention that a patch was dropped. It was not mentioned in Debian changelog. But the moment you do this diff here, you see, wait, where is the patch that was there before? It's not here anymore. You have to mention this in the changelog. So range diff is awesome to check for that. And here is what a finished merge looks like. This is a Git log output of a real merge. It's a very simple one, of course, HA proxy in this case. What's important here is this tag here. That's the pristine Debian package, 201-1. That's how Debian uploaded the package. No changes from us. Then comes our delta. One commit, simple. It changes 2 files even, but it's one logical change. And that's the delta. It's easy to see, it's easy to spot, and this actually helps us so much in submitting these changes upstream. My usual workflow here is to immediately after I add a delta, I add a Salsa remote for it, create a branch in Salsa, and I can cherry pick this commit exactly as it is in most cases. And then I push to Salsa and it's submitted. And I can do the same to upstream, but then of course I cannot just cherry pick because upstream is not a Debian package. The other thing we get here is, you can see these 3 commits here. These are made by the tool. Again, you don't have to use it. It's just a helper. Merge changelogs is what creates the changelog entry, not this entry, it reinserts the Ubuntu changelog entries into the package. It uses the package merge changelogs for that. Then reconstruct changelog basically converts the commit message into a changelog entry. So this message here in yellow is exactly what's going to be written here in the changelog, so it's done for you. And update maintainer, since this is a package with an Ubuntu Delta, we change the maintainer in Debian control to Ubuntu Devel. So this makes it easy to spot mistakes, the structure. It's concise, it's easy to cherry pick, it's easy to submit upstream. That was a huge win for us. Not everything is perfect, of course. So some packages we are not importing on purpose. Usually it's because they are huge. The kernel package is one such example. LibreOffice is another one. They really tax the infrastructure. And the kernel in particular, they have their own way of packaging things. They have their own patch system, their own review system. They really wouldn't benefit from this. Some packages, they are not imported because they fail to import. It's a bug. We have such bugs. We try to fix them all. There are so many edge cases as well that we have to handle. For example, since we import the whole history, we import very old packages. Some have very old syntaxes in Debian changelog. Some have weird encoding in Debian control. It's not UTF-8. And you were crashing on those. Some have a .git directory in the tarball, which is something that Git doesn't like to import, right? So we have to handle all that in the import. This depends on the team. In our team, we have a review policy, so when we submit changes, we create a merge proposal in Launchpad, and we ask for reviews. You have to manually select who you want to review it. It's not automatic yet. It should depend on the package, of course. It should select, should create a review slot for the maintainer of the package, for the team maintaining that package. That doesn't happen yet. The upload tag I mentioned before, that's not automated. If you forget to push this tag, when the package is imported, since the tag isn't there, the rich history will not be used. You will just get a single commit for that import. Of course, it's still in Git, it's still in a repository, but it's not in the main tree, if you will, in the main branch. There's an edge case here. Git doesn't store empty directories. And I saw in the LinkedIn talk earlier that there's a warning for this. So when we try to import a package and it has an empty directory in the source tarball, for example, Git doesn't store that. So since the archive, what it gets is an actual dput upload. It's from a tarball. It's the source package. It's not from Git. They will never match because in Git the empty directory will not be there, but in the uploaded package there will be an empty directory. So they never match. So in that case, you also don't get the rich history. Not everybody is using that in Ubuntu. It's, as I showed in the beginning, it started as a server team tool. But the nice thing is that you don't have to use it. It runs in parallel, if you will, with the system. You can keep using debdifs. You can keep using, dput you still have to use. You don't need reviews. You can upload as you want. You can do merges the hard way. We think it's the hard way, doing merges manually. And so for merges, there is really a loss here, since you don't see the Ubuntu Delta as clearly as you do when you use this workflow for merges. For SIUs, it's okay because it's usually one small change on top of an existing stable release. It's going to be small by itself. That's even policy. So it doesn't hurt that much if Git is not used. But the thing keeps running in the background. Every single upload is imported automatically. So it works, it accommodates, it's very accommodating. That's basically the summary of it. We have all of main, Ubuntu main imported, with a few exceptions due to either bugs or packages that we block explicitly, like the kernel. We have on-demand packages from Universe, and this, I mean, if anybody wants a package to be imported into Git, just ping us. We will happily import it. It's an on-demand thing now. If we start working on a bug on a certain package and that bug is not in Git, we import it and add it to the list so it's kept up to date. That's how we are proceeding now. Universe is huge. That's a lot of space. The Debian merges for us became much easier. They became less mistake prone. They are much easier to submit upstream, as to the point where when I'm adding a delta, I already know that the reviewer will ask me, hey, did you submit this upstream? I can add a remote for Salsa and submit it almost in the same way, almost at the same time. It's easier for upstreams to see what our changes are, and they can then maybe ask, hey, why are you changing this? There's a better way to do this. Or pick the change. If we forgot to send it upstream, it happens. Easily cherry pick. It's mainly used by the Ubuntu server team. As I said, it's available for all developers to use, but it's a choice. In particular, in the merge workflow, what some people don't like is that if you have never used this before, you have to actually find out what the delta is. Because you have just one single commit for a whole bunch of changes. You have to decompose that into individual commits to make the delta concise. But that's worked just the first time. After that, the delta is clear, and you can easily add to it or drop from it. It doesn't force Git usage, and it works with Debian packages that are not in Git. So since we are importing source packages, it doesn't matter to us if the Debian package is in Git or not, which Git repository it is, which Git server, what branch format they are using, applied, unapplied. Some they store only the Debian directory in Git. They don't even store the source code. There's a lot of variation there. This doesn't affect us because we import the source package. And our interest here is in managing the Ubuntu Delta that exists on top of these source packages. That's it. That's what I have for the time, 20 minutes. I scheduled a BOF for tomorrow. If somebody wants to see this in more detail or wants to do a merge or see how we do a merge step by step, how we do SRUs, that kind of stuff, you can send email to our Ubuntu server mailing list. This is an Ubuntu Devel topic, but since this project started within the Ubuntu server, you can use either, to be honest. And we have a Discord site also where you can post questions if you want. That's what I have. Yeah, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, feel free.
We have 1 minute left, so I think technical questions go to the BOF, but if there's any clarifying requests or quick questions, we can have them now. 1 minute, hey, so short.
Thank you for your presentation. Do you use any special tools to handle changes in Debian control? For example, there is a line saying build depends on several packages. If we add some more package, and then in upstream some dependencies are changed, then if we compare them with diff, then patches that we get can be easily merged. Do you have any special tools? Do you use them to change, to handle changes in control?
No, the only tool we have there is called, oh no, I think we have sound, is update maintainer, which replaces, well, which adds, no, sorry, it replaces the maintainer field with the Ubuntu Devel mailing list and adds an XSBC original maintainer for Debian. I'm not sure I understand the case you said about changed build dependencies. When you said upstream, you mean the actual upstream source open source project. They have a new, they need a new build dependency, and you forgot to add it to the package or something like that?
Okay, out of time.
Okay, sorry.
All these
you can
questions
approach
to the
here,
buff.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.